Welcome to Orbicle Times Podcast, and hello to everyone, whatever part of the globe you're from or happen to reside in. My name is Kelly Jo, and here we'll provide armchair conversations gathered from interviews and research reviews to explore the seen, the unseen, and the in-between of the supernatural paranormal phenomena, with topics that circle around Spirit Orbs, NDEs, OBEs, UFOs, time slips, mystical moments, higher consciousness, and more. I hope that this cast will be our meeting place and judge-free zone where we can explore, learn, and grow through the telling of. This cast will be launched on a monthly basis or a bi-weekly schedule whenever I'm able to make contact with those in the know for their telling of. Speaking of those in the know and the telling of, have you had mystical moments or other supernatural paranormal experiences? Care to share on this cast? Then consider stepping into the light with your telling of, or send in your monologue for me to read on this podcast. Simply email orbicletimespodcast@gmail.com for a chance to contribute to this cast.
And the other light said to me, I escorted your mother to this world, to the earth. And then it said, this is an interruption in your life. And that's the exact words it said. This is an interruption in your life. It said very calmly, very nicely, easily. It said, I'm going to tell you everything you want to know, but you won't be allowed to remember.
In this episode of Orbicle Times, Part 1, Philadelphia-born musician, singer, and saxophonist Dennis Bullock joins me from his home in Switzerland for his telling of his very mystical, magical, motherly moment during what he calls his roaring 20s, followed by his NDE. These will circle around light visions and futuristic messages involving timelines, which he received while unlacing his shoes. And speaking of lacing, he talks brownies, or was it let them eat cake? Oh well. Dennis had what he describes as downloads and abilities after his NDE, which we explore in a Part 2 of Orbicle Times Podcast. And so, without further ado, let's get on with this interview. So, my dear Dennis Bullock, welcome to this cast, and I'm so very pleased that you agreed to this chat.
Yeah, well, thank you, Kelly Jo, for having me on your show, and it's a pleasure, and to be able to share my NDE experiences.
Yes.
With you and your audience.
If you'd first like to start with your telling of your encounter regarding your mother, and then follow that by your NDE. And so, as they say, the floor is all yours. Take it away.
It was actually in Montreal, Canada, that this happened. But my mother's, me and my mother were very, very close. You know, she was the one that inspired me in life for music and for just being happy. And she didn't have a job, and she saved her money when I was in my 20s to buy me my first saxophone. She was like my world. And then she got sick, and then she died. And when she died, my whole world crashed. It's like somebody turned out the lights in the room. You know, it was quite dark, and so I started to drink every night for about a week and a half. I would go to the bar, have my drinks, come home, sit on my side of my bed, cry myself to sleep. And that was a routine. And until one night I came back ready to do my routine, sit on the side of my bed, cry myself to sleep. And when I came into my room, normally I would come in and I'd turn off the lights, I'd sit down and then cry myself to sleep. Well, this one night I turned off the lights and I went to sit down and untie my sneakers. And I noticed on the floor that there still was light. And I said, that's impossible. I know I turned off the light. That's impossible. So when I looked up, this is the crazy part. When I looked up, it was like the sun you see in the sky was in my room. And coming from this sun was like, I don't know how to describe this part, like an ocean of love. When you go to the beach and you have a wave that's too tall and it covers your whole body. Well, imagine the water is love, and it covered like every cell, every part of my body. And out of this sun, which today I would call it God, came two smaller lights. And these two smaller lights, one was a little bit bigger than the other. And they kind of floated out of the sun that was in my room towards me. And the smaller light, I could recognize that it was my mother. And the first thing I said to her was, "It's like that over there?" Because this sun made me feel like I was in Hawaii, perfect weather, lounging in a chair, secure, like a baby would feel in its mother's arms, but 1,000 times that feeling. And they floated out to me, and I said that to her. And then she started to speak to me, but the way she spoke to me, like we're talking now, but it was like the conversation was shot into my brain. I could hear everything and everything just like I hear you, but it was, I guess it was a form of telepathy. And I started to talk to her kind of through my mind too, in a way. But I didn't realize that I started to do it when she started to do it. I was just trying to answer. She said to me that I'm going to tell you 1 week in advance into the future so that you're going to know that this is real. And I said, okay. And I was just listening. And she said, you're going to have a job in a week from now. And this job, there's going to be a doorman, what we call a bouncer. And she said that this guy is going to be huge, a big guy. And she said he's going to be a homosexual and a psychopath. And she said, he's going to try to make a pass at you. Whatever you do, don't get into an argument or fight with him, because she knew me and she knew that I would be ready to fight him quite fast, even if he was super bigger than me or not. If he came at me trying to make a pass at me, knowing that I'm not gay. And here's another thing for your listeners. I have nothing against gay people, and I have nothing against lesbian people or bisexual people. I have nothing against that. The only thing I have against is that if somebody knows that you are not that way and they continue to try to make passes at you, then that's not cool. So yeah, so she said, whatever you do, don't get into a fight with him, because I was in my roaring 20s. I was vigorous. I was ready for, I was ready to defend my manhood, and I wasn't looking for trouble when I was 20 years old, but I'm not looking for trouble, but I can handle it if it comes my way. So that's how it was. So she said, if you get into a fight with him, she said, there's two possibilities or two timelines that could happen. She said, either he kills you or you kill him and you go to jail for the rest of your life. And she said, these two possibilities will happen. One of them will happen if you get into an argument or fight with him, because he's a psychopath. So I said, okay, Mom, I won't get into a fight with this person, like you said. One more thing, your girlfriend at the time that you have now, she has 3 kids, but you don't know about it. And she wants to have a 4th kid with you. She wants to trick you somehow to have a 4th kid. I'm just telling you these things so that you know that what's happening now is real. It's not a dream. It's not an imagination. It's real. But then I asked her, well, Mom, who's this other light that's just standing here with you? Once I said that to her, the other light spoke to me. And the other light said to me, I'm an escort. I escorted your mother to this world, to the earth. And I said, really? And then it said, this is an interruption in your life. And that's the exact words it said. This is an interruption in your life. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, well, I got some questions, I got God in my room right here. I got some questions, who's going to be my wife? How many kids am I going to have? Why am I here? And what I would call today, I would call it probably an angel. It said very calmly, very nicely, easily, it said, I'm going to tell you everything you want to know, but you won't be allowed to remember. You're only going to be allowed to remember what your mother tells you. And it told me all the answers to my questions, but I wouldn't be allowed to remember. So then my mother said, after the angel said that, then my mother said to me, I'm going to always be with you. I love you. I'm always going to be with you, but you won't know that I'm around you as much as tonight. And then they floated slowly back to the, what I would call the sun, like an ice cube in a glass. They just melted away. And when they melted away, tears burst out my eyes. And I said, nobody is ever going to believe this happened. Nobody's going to believe me if I tell them what happened. But I have the proof. The next week, just like my mother said, my band called me and said, hey, we got a job. I said to them, okay, that's great. So I was thinking to myself, hey, what my mom said is beginning to come true. So we went to do the sound check that day. And so we did the sound. When I went to the club, and then I saw this huge guy at the door. And I walked in the club with the band, and we did our sound check. And then I came out. And then I went to do the show. After the first set, I came and I was standing talking to the musicians, and he kind of walked behind me and kind of grabbed my butt. And I turned around and I said, what's this guy doing? And I asked my band members, did you see that guy? Did you see what he just tried to do? And I was getting very angry. And after he did it, he went into a corner and just folded his arms and watched me. Now, like I said, this is a huge guy. It's like, I'm like 6'2", and not a small guy either, but this guy makes about 2 or 3 of me. So I was going over to him to tell him. So I told my band members, I'm gonna tell this guy something, and I was angry. But then I said, remember mom? Oh yeah, remember mom. Don't get into an argument. So I went over to him and I said, hey man, I'm not that way. I'm not gay. So please don't touch me anymore. And he said, you had too many beers. You just imagined that. I said, no, I didn't imagine it. I said, don't touch me anymore, please. And then I walked away because I saw that the conversation was beginning to go to the place where my mom was talking about. So I didn't want it to go too negative. So I said, just don't touch me no more. Thank you. I'm not that way. And I walked away from him. Calmly, no, not aggressively like I wanted to. And we did the second set. And then I left the club and nothing happened to me. But the next day, I got a phone call from the band members, and they said, did you hear what happened? And I said, no. Remember that bouncer you were talking about that tried to touch your butt or touched your butt, whatever? The guy you were talking about? He got into an argument at the end of the night with the club owner and crushed both of his ribs. He went to jail for manslaughter. And I said, what? And I said, oh my God, if this happened, that means everything my mother says is coming true. And that also means that my girlfriend, who I've been dating for about 1.5 years, has 3 kids, and she hid them from me. So I called my girlfriend at that time and I said, hey, how you doing? She said, hello, I'm fine. And I said, tell me something. Do you have 3 kids? And she said, the phone went silent. Then she said, who told you? And I said, wait a minute. I couldn't believe it. I said, wait a minute. No, wait. I said, I'm going to ask you again. Do you have 3 kids? And she said, yes, but who told you? And then I said, well, you're not going to believe who told me, but I'm going to tell you anyway. My dead mother told me. And I told her, I said, well, if you're going to hide your kids from me, I don't know what else you're going to hide from me. So we were finished. I broke up with her, and that was the first experience. I was cured, by the way, after I saw my mother, because I didn't want to drink alcohol anymore, and I didn't want to. I wasn't feeling sad anymore because I knew that she was strong, she was happy, and she was powerful.
You mentioned that when you saw the big light and then you saw two little lights, and you said that you recognized that one of them was your mother. How did you recognize it? Was it a feeling?
It was a feeling. It's like, how can I kind of explain? It's like it. I mean, if I put your mom in in a room full about 30 ladies, and they all have the same color hair, but you're gonna know your mom. You're gonna feel that energy. You're just gonna feel her. You're gonna feel her in that room. You're gonna know right away that's her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I knew, because she was, when I saw her out coming from the sun, she was just light, all light, like a ball of light. There's no really like, oh, there's her hair, and it was all light. It was just silhouettes of light. Is the best way to describe them.
You mentioned that there was the two of them. One was your mother, one was an escort or an angel or maybe a
Mm.
guide. Did they look different from each other?
Yes,
In what way?
the angel was much taller. He was much shorter, and the angel was quite tall. I would say, maybe 7 feet or something like that. It was very, very tall, much taller than my mother. My mother's was maybe 5'8" or something like that, and this other angel was towering over her.
Was the angel a male presence?
It didn't. It was neutral. I couldn't
Okay.
really tell. But the voice. That's a very good question, actually. I didn't hear any female energy in that voice. It was
Got you.
more of a male energy, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your mother also mentioned that um, when she would be leaving, that she would still be around you, that you would be able to feel her. Have you since that encounter?
Yes, but she was saying that I wouldn't feel her as strongly as I did that night.
Right.
And yes, I feel her all the time, but not as strongly as that night. That night, it was like I could feel her just standing right there. She was right there. So of course it wasn't as strong as that night, but there's occasions when I feel that she's watching over me, or she comes and visits me, because of my second experience. I became more sensitive to the spiritual world, I guess you could call it.
Okay. And why don't you begin with your second experience that you had?
The first experience, I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want people. I didn't tell my band because I didn't want them poking at me saying, "Oh, he lost his mother and now he lost his mind." He's a great artist, but a great singer, but he lost his mind because he lost his mother. So I didn't tell them anything. I didn't tell them I knew all. I knew that guy was a psychopath. I didn't tell them nothing. Once the first experience happened, I tried to go on with life, and I tried to kind of put that experience away. And I was just satisfied that I knew that my mom is fine. That was the biggest thing for me. So
Yeah.
I put that experience away, and I tried to go normal, what I would call normal. I'm a singer, and I was, a young singer, and I didn't know. I wanted to go higher in my career, so I met this guy who used to be a lead singer from the Platters, and he was doing great. I mean, he had records in Canada, and he was from America, and he had records in Canada and all over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was living in Canada, and well, I tried to follow him. And one night, I was working with him, and he introduced me to drugs, and I started doing drugs with him, and I thought, that was the way, because look at him, he's successful, he's a super great singer, and has records on the radio, he's doing new albums all the time, and his life is perfect. It seems on the outside eyes, his life is perfect. So I started following him until maybe 2 years or 3 years went by, and during the show, he dropped dead. He died. For me, that was like a wake up call. So when he died, I stopped cold turkey, no drug. What I did, I replaced the drugs with marijuana. So the only thing I would do was smoke a joint once in a while. And my girlfriend at the time, I was living in Montreal still, and I had an apartment, and we had this particular day we had ran out of marijuana, so there was no more marijuana that day. I was going to call one of my musician friends because, so it's not a bad thing, but most musicians either have marijuana or they know where to get it. I called one of my friends, and he said, no problem. I'll bake it in a cake for you, and I'll bring it over. I said, cool. I said, I never had it in a cake before. But I didn't realize that, this friend put so much marijuana in the cake. I don't know how much he put in it, but it was tons. He brought the cake over, he dropped it off, and he left it with me and my girlfriend. I said, a chocolate cake. Good, it looks good. I can't wait to try this. I never had it. I never ate marijuana. I was always a smoker. I never ate it. So I cut a piece for her, and I cut a piece for me, and we ate it. And 20 minutes went by, and nothing happened. And I said, it must be a bad batch. I said, I'm going to cut half of the cake now. You take one half, and I take the other. I ate my half, and she ate her half, and waited 20 minutes, still nothing. Then another 10 minutes went by, and then stuff started to happen. And when it started to happen, it wasn't that we were getting high. It was like our bodies were shutting down. I started to forget to breathe. I would be talking, and I would, I forgot to breathe. And I started to have trouble to move. I couldn't even turn to the right or the left. I started to have trouble. And she said to me, hey, you better call emergency service like 911 or something to come and get us while we still can. I said, yeah, I think you're right, because I'm forgetting to breathe. I'm having trouble to move at all. And so I push myself as hard as I can to call the ambulance. And they said, hello, what's the problem? And I was a little bit embarrassed because I had to tell them, well, I think we ate too much marijuana, and I think we're dying now, and we need your help. Can you come save us? To this day, I don't know I don't know if there was any added stuff, but I know there was a heck of a lot, very, 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 very strong marijuana in it. And it was going to our bloodstream, and we took an awful lot. We ate the whole cake, just two people. And it began to shut our organs down. Now, I had smoked a lot of marijuana, and I never had that happen. But what I understood later was that it goes direct into your bloodstream when you eat it. And you even have a more potent effect than if you smoke it. So I was on the phone, and I was talking to emergency services, and I said, yeah, Clay, can you please come, and blah, blah, blah. So they came, and so we're in the ambulance, and they take us to the hospital. And as I'm in my stretcher and they're passing me past the reception at the hospital, I see my dead mother again.
Oh boy.
And this time she had this outfit on. Now she used to have a club of women that would go play bingo, and they would go on trips together, about 12 women, and they wore these these special shirts. And and I recognized that she had that special shirt on that she always goes out, with these women with. And she was looking in reception through papers. And I said, that's weird. There's Mom. And I didn't realize it at the time that I was so close to death. That's why I was able to see her. But then they put me in a room, and they put my girlfriend in another room. And they gave me this, a cup of this black, I thought it was tar, but later on I found it was charcoal.
Charcoal, yeah.
Yeah, to drink. And it tastes horrible, by the way. So and they left me in the room alone for about, I guess it's been about 2-3 hours. So I was relieved because, like I said, I was trying to keep my heart beating, and I was, fighting for life because I thought that, this is it. You ain't going to make it. I'm in the bed, and they gave me this drink, and I quickly drink it down, and they leave the room, and I take a deep breath, and I say, "Whew, I think I'm going to be all right. I'm going to live. I'm going to live." So as I'm laying in my hospital bed, in the hospital room by myself, and I started to relax, all of a sudden, I start to hear my heart beat in my ear.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts boop, boom, boop, boom, boop, boom, boop, boom, boop, boom. And it stops. And the minute it stops, I just pop out of my body. I just pop out. Like if you were to jump out of your bed, if the alarm clock wakes up and you jump out of your bed because you're late for work, I just pop out like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing I said was, "I'm out." Kind of shocking because because it was so easy. And I was out, and I could see my body was in the bed, but I was standing by it.
Yeah.
So then I start to look at my hand because I was like, I couldn't believe I'm out. I'm out. And I'm looking at my hand, and my hand looks like it has this grayish, light bluish tint around it. And the only way I could describe it is like if you watch TV too late and you have, we call it emergency broadcasting system comes over.
Sure. Yeah.
And it just goes static.
Staticky. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my hand kind of if you look in the static, you'll see that there's colors in that static. Well, that's how my hand looks, similar to that. Well, not like the static, but just like that kind of color, that light glowing kind of
Right.
color.
You were standing, though. You weren't floating at this point.
No. I popped out. I stood.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
was just looking at my hand, and I was like, wow, I'm out. It was so easy, and it was not like the shock was that I was out, but it was not shocking that, okay, you're out. It was not like, oh, whoa, I'm out. I was not. The shock was that it was so easy to be out of your body, and that you died, and because everybody all my life, oh, you die, you suffer, and me, it was like a yawn or drinking a glass of water. It
Were
was over.
monitors going off in the hospital, alerting
N-
the staff?
No, because
Mm-mm-mm.
they thought I was going to be all right after I drank the charcoal.
The charcoal.
Yeah. So they were attending more to my girlfriend in the other room.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm looking at my hand, and then I hear this drop of water. There's a sink in my hospital room, and this drop of water, and for some odd reason, my curiosity and my personality was the same, but my curiosity was quite high, like at 1,000. So to a soul's eye, a drop of water was the most fascinating thing you could ever see. And I said, wow, a drop of water. And the minute I said, I would like to see that up close. And the minute I thought that, my vision went right in front of it and then went right back. Because I was a little bit of a distance from the sink,
Right.
where the water was dropping. And that was like, wow, okay, wow. And then here's the other thing that happened. Okay, I'll give you an example
Okay.
to explain the next scene. If you don't ride a bike in 20 years, and I give you a bike in 20 years, you're still going to be able to ride it. Well, this was the feeling that I got because I said to myself, I would like to stop that drop of water in midair. And then I put my hand and I said, let me think. Do I remember how to do it? And I did it. I just I just wiped my hand in the air, and the water froze in midair because it was dropping before, drip, 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 and I froze it in midair. And for some odd reason, didn't really shock me that much. It was just like, oh, cool, I got it. And then I said, I'd like to see that water from every angle possible. Then I just opened my hand and like five of me appeared at the sink. One was on the right, one was on the left, one was underneath the water, which was frozen in midair. I had stopped time.
Mm-hmm.
And one was watching them, and I was watching all five. And they all were me, my face, my body, everything. And I could see through each of their vision the water. I could go to the right and I could see what the right one was seeing, what the one was seeing in front, one was seeing on the that was had his head on the bottom of it, and one on the left, and blah blah blah. When I would close my hand, all five would go back to me, like with a swishing sound, like whoosh.
Hmm.
And then I would open my hand, and then they would be back at the sink again. And it's at this point it started to be like Bugs Bunny. So I start opening my hand and closing it because I couldn't believe what I was seeing at that point. And I was doing very fast, and they would go very fast. And then I said, I wonder if I open my hand with a little shake, will they shake? And I opened my hand and I shook my hand a little bit, and they appeared and they had a little shake. And then I burst out laughing. And when I burst out laughing, it was like my laugh was in the Grand Canyon. It just went, ha, 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 ha. At that point, I felt somebody was watching me. And I heard a voice. And this voice said, very caring, kind of like a mother would say to a child at a playground, don't run around the corner so fast or you could fall. The voice said to me, if you stay out here too long, you might have to stay. And it wasn't an order. It was sudden, very caring, very neutral. And I said to myself, oh yeah, right. That's true. That's how I knew it wasn't my thought. It was, I would say now, probably God's. I said, yeah, that's right. My heart can't stay stopped forever. And then I pointed myself. I didn't even go to the voice to check more about that information. Oh yeah, here's the other thing I forgot to mention, is that kind of describe this like this. I don't know if you ever heard of Alka-Seltzer.
Yes.
If you put Alka-Seltzer in water, it dissolves, right? But the longer I stayed out of my body, it did the opposite. The more information I got. Like it was swelling. 1 minute I knew I could stop time. Next minute I knew I could divide myself. Next minute I knew that we could live many lives spontaneously. And the information was enormous. It just kept on expanding until I pointed myself in the direction of my body. And here's another thing. I didn't want to look at my body, my face, because I was afraid that I was going to have some kind of weird expression on it, like, so I was scared. So I didn't want to look at the face of my body. I only looked at the legs. That's how I knew that I was out. I pointed myself in the direction of my body, and I just said, now I'm going to go into my body. And I jumped in my body, and the minute I jumped in, my heart did a double beat, boom, and it started to beat. I came back with a lot of information, and also with some type of gift.
Before we end this interview, do you have any other, or maybe one last example or examples for the audience in regards to your experiences and some words of wisdom that you'd like to leave?
Well, the only thing I would say was the world is gonna seem more crazy, but it's only asking you which direction you want to go. Do you want to go on lower vibrations or higher vibrations? And remember, the key to this game, because the earth is a game, for you to just experience. That's the reason for life, for any soul, is to come to experience. And the key to this game is love. If you want to change the situation, if you want to change somebody, there's two things. There's love and raising your vibration, which is more love. These are the things that will change the outside. You don't try to change someone or person or thing. You change what's inside of you, which is your vibration. And the other things around you, outside of you, will change. But change you. And so love is the key. No matter what's going on, love is the key.
So, Dennis, before we wrap this interview up, would you like to give either your email, some kind of contact information for people that
Yes.
might want to get a hold of you?
Yeah, sure. They can write me at easybullock@hotmail.com. They can contact me and write me. And like I said, I do sessions for people. I read people's energy. I used to just touch their left hand, and I could know all the things I need to know if they have questions. But now I can do it directly, just concentrating on them through Zoom or Skype. Well, basically they would have to write me, and then I send them the information.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Well, once again, Dennis, I thank you, and thank you for making time in your busy schedule and working around the time zone differences, and of course for your contribution to this cast through your telling of. I appreciate you, and I thank you again, Dennis.
Well, thank you, Kelly Jo, for having me on your show. I love your Orb show, but I thank you again for having me. And like I said, if we ever need to do a part 2 about anything, I'm very honored to do it with you.
All right. Okay, so you take care, and we'll keep in touch, even with the time zone differences.
Oh, for sure. Okay, Kelly Jo, thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you
great
again.
day.
Yeah, you as well. Take care.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. I would like to keep this cast a commercial-free zone. In light of that, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channels. All my orb videos are available by using the handle @Spirit Orbs Sightings, or visit my new channel with the handle @Orbicle Times Podcast. If you've already subscribed, many thanks. For blogs, episodes, show notes, bios, images, and video, please visit www.orbicletimes.com. If you enjoyed an episode, then please give a like or a share on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, or whatever podcatcher you happen to use. If you've already done so, much appreciated. Thank you for taking your time to visit these Orbicle Times. Orbicle Times Podcast is written, produced, edited, and hosted by me, Kelly Jo, at Studio Spare Room.